Я є прихильником свободи слова. Мені може не подобатись те, що відбувається на програмі, але я віддам життя за те, щоб вона була.
Hello from Kiev. Welcome to SHUSTER Live in English. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the winner in the nomination of the International Award of 2016 is post-truth. The average woman or man do not distinguish anymore between fact and fiction, true and false. The referendum campaign in Great Britain and the presidential campaign in the United States were a clear example of that. Ukraine is by no means an exception. And certain of the examples we'll discuss today in our studio. Our guests are Gulliver Craig, correspondent in Ukraine and Poland of the channel France 24, Jason Smart, political scientist, Peter Dickinson, chief editor of Business Ukraine magazine, is going to join us very soon, Sergei Vlasenko, member of parliament, and Yevgen Utkin, president of a high-tech company, KM Core. Example number one. Last week, thousands of people were protesting on the streets of Kiev. People had invested or deposited their money in commercial banks. Banks were closed, and people lost their deposits, and they're demanding justice now. Some of those protests were genuine, most of them were genuine. One of them was sponsored. We think so. By a small political party, it's quite new. Its leaders are former members of Party of Regions. And they were protesting just in front of a National Bank building. One of the leaders, a young politician, Yevgen Murayev, was approached by somebody and he was handed a USB drive. And on that drive, he had seen and listened to 90 hours of conversations between the deputy head of the National Bank of Ukraine, Ekaterina Roshkova, and several big players on the financial market. Channel News 1, which is close to Yevgen Murayev, did a 1.5-hour program about it. We, in our program, showed 5 minutes. The most important excerpts, we thought. Ekaterina Roshkova discussed issues with the CEO of a Russian state bank, VTB, and helping that bank. She defended the interests of her own bank, Platinum Bank, although she's not anymore officially connected to it, and she also discussed liquidity. Nobody in Ukraine picked it up. And I'm asking, is it fact? Is it fiction? Is it true? Is it false? How do we deal with issues like that? Sergei.
You see, Savik, the problem is, you see that the country is already full of such an information, and maybe the country became it doesn't want to react on that, but that's not normal. That's absolutely not normal. Yesterday, just on another TV show, I've heard let's say, the official statement of the SBU spokesman, the spokesman of the Secret Service, who said, yes, we will investigate it, whether the taping was legal or not. We will be not digging in the details which were discussed on that tapes. As for me, I was really shocked as a member of the parliament, as a citizen of this country. I was really shocked because during the war period in Ukraine, when we have the aggressor state who tried to conquer some territories and who conquered some territories of Ukraine, and at that moment, during the war period, one of the chief executives of the National Bank is helping to the Russian state-owned bank just to increase their influence on the financial market on Ukraine. So as for me, that's a crime against the state, as for me, if it is truth. As for me, on the same day when you showed these tapes on your show, or when they were showed on the News 1 channel, At the same moment, the SBU should launch the criminal case against that. They should investigate not how Mr. Muraev just received this information, but what is said on that. Is it true or not? Is it dealing with the helping to the Russian authorities to increase their influence on Ukrainian's economy? So that's the main question. But you see, all the secret services and the institutions like prosecutors general are under total control of the president of Ukraine, who is not interested in such an investigation. So that's the main problem. So the president of Ukraine is the cover on that. So he is the roof. We are using such a slang word like a roof. He is a roof for the head of the national bank. That's why there are no investigations. Nobody is interested in that, I mean, from the state authorities. And we are just only discussing that on the TV shows like yours.
Gulliver, what?
I'd like to ask you, Mr. Vlasenko, because you've been talking about this, I know, a lot. What is really the headline story about this? What exactly has she apparently done wrong according to these tapes? Because I've listened to a bit of the tapes, I've seen a bit of it, and I mean, I get lost in all the detail, and I'd like to understand how much money is involved. She's accused of helping banks smuggle money to Russia, is that right? It appears from these tapes. Can you explain how much is involved?
It's a little bit more complicated because, you see, we have, let's say we have a policy of the National Bank according to which the National Bank is liquidating the small or medium Ukrainian banks, but they are helping the Russian bank to survive, even in the situation when they should be liquidated. So she is supporting, saying in a legal way, she is directly supporting the Russian bank. She is helping them to smuggle the money.
Several?
On the tapes, no, two of them were mentioned. One is a VTB bank, and the second bank is a BM bank, so the former Bank of Moscow. So two Russian state-owned banks are artificially supported by Ukrainian National Bank during the war period.
These Russian banks are still operating in Ukraine?
Sure.
How come?
That's the question. That's the question. So it looks like that is the state policy, to have a business with Russians as usual, let's say, because the president have his own candy factory in Lipetsk, and he's operating as usual during the war period. He's paying taxes to the budget of the Russian Federation. So let's say that's one page of the story. And the second page of the story is that the National Bank is helping the Russian banks to survive in this period of time in Ukraine. And the problem is that after liquidating of 84 Ukrainian banks, the percentage of influence of Russian banks on the Ukrainian financial sector grown from 12 up till 41%. So today, the Ukrainian financial market is on 41% operated by Russian state-owned banks, and that's during the war period. So that's not normal from the political point of view, that's not normal from the legal point of view, and so on.
Again, when we look at the recording itself, if we can listen to 5 seconds of it, it's video and audio, it's very good quality.
Вот, я думаю, на сегодняшний момент. То есть минимальная информация от НБУ минимум.
Mr.
I'm not an expert in this. Actually, I'm not following this scandal at all. And as a businessman, I'd like to focus on results. And talking about NBU itself,
National
Bank of Ukraine, for this 3 years period of time. So this bank destroyed a couple of banks, and we paid this price as a business. I lost dozens of million hryvnias because of they destroyed one of the bank. So, and a lot of small and medium-sized businesses just paid this. Probably it was a good idea to clean up this bank. I'm not sure. But on top of this destroying system, you have to create something. You have to support local, first of all, local Ukrainian business. And I'd like to say, during these 3 years, we have no at all financial tools to support businesses who helped our army, businesses who create jobs, etc. So I'm more worried about this, not about this scandal. On top of this, we are living in the very, very hybrid time. Means, first of all, like a businessman, I had a business in Russia. And it was actually, for me, it was like 70%, 70% of my business was in Russia. I lost everything there. I lost because I am Russian, but I support Maidan, I support army, etc. And I lost this business. So I think it's very, very clear message. So I support Ukraine, I support Ukrainians, revolution, army, etc. And now, when I'm receiving this message, so I'm not, I'm not very satisfied with this. And I'm not expert in this, but, definitely we have to have explanation from the top leaders of our country.
The lack of leadership on this has been pretty incredible from the top. When there's a country already faces such serious doubts about the national banking system, there's such a lack of trust as whether the national bank will support itself. Banks don't have the necessary liquidity that they need. You would imagine they'd immediately act to try to clear this up, to make sure that this scandal was completely investigated and people were prosecuted if there's something illegal that took place. But in fact, they've taken the other course of action, which is to try to hide it, which is, I guess, much more typical for here. And it's unfortunate. It's terrifying. And if I was a Ukrainian depositor and I had an account here, I'd be terrified by this. Because if we already see this sort of collaboration, what does that mean? And secondly, the collaboration with Russia, of all countries in the world, the country they have war on. And so this is just fantastically a terrible situation for Ukraine.
Has this guy Murayev, who got the tapes, taken them to the SBU yet?
Yes, he has.
He has?
Yes, he has. And today, finally, we got a response from the Ukrainian security service saying, via Facebook, not as usual, that we are going to investigate, not facts which may be true or false, but we are going to investigate the origin of it.
As I've told you, they are trying, they are trying to change the vector of the discussion. So they are not discussing the sense, they're trying to discuss how it appeared, when did they come from, these tapes, and so on and so on. But by the way, today, Yulia Tymoshenko, she presented her file to the SBU personally, saying that should be investigated, and also mentioning these tapes. Because you see, you are absolutely right that in the normal country, at the moment of the appearance of such an information, first of all, the head of the National Bank should explain something. The vice deputy head of the National Bank should explain something. By the way, the president should explain something because he nominated the head of the National Bank and he trusts her. And he is protecting her, and so on and so on. But they are trying, as Savik mentioned at the beginning of the program, that they are not even sharing this information through the channel. They're trying to block the information. So only the really independent TV studios and only the independent agencies are talking about that.
Do these tapes show that they have done something illegal, or simply that they're pursuing a policy which you think is wrong?
Sure. They are also talking about the, let's say, the black salaries. So they are also the part of the conversation saying that some money should be paid under the table. They are also talking about that. So there are a lot of information which could be used for launching in criminal cases. They are also talking with the one bank, saying that bank is money laundering, directly using that word. So they are money laundering. And the vice deputy head of the National Bank is saying directly to the CEO of the bank, please, I'm asking you, please stop the money laundering. So what's that? What's that? And no reaction from the top officials, no reaction from the prosecutor general, no reaction from the media, no reaction from the National Bank.
And it's not because she wants it stopped, because she wants it not to be visible. Because
absolutely.
It's become too visible.
And this is, what concerns me for the future of Ukraine, especially with the United States specifically, where there's Ukraine fatigue in Washington. Everyone's talking about it now. Why should we continue to support Ukraine? It's a country that's disappointed us again and again.